Hello from Mindset Daily, wishing you a day full of health, peace, and happiness. Thank you for watching the Mindset Daily channel. Don't forget to like and subscribe to support us. Thank you so much.
Have you ever wondered what your life would look like if you could remain calm, collected, and centered no matter what storms come your way? Imagine the power of staying steady when everyone else is falling apart. Now ask yourself, how much is peace of mind truly worth to you? Think about this. What would change if you could respond to challenges instead of reacting to them? Picture yourself holding composure when others panic, guiding your own life with clarity. Isn't that a skill worth mastering? For years, I've taught personal development, and I can tell you, this ability alone can transform your entire life. To see why, let's consider the storm and the captain. Picture a ship trapped in a violent storm. Waves crashing, winds howling, rain pouring down. The passengers panic, running in fear. But the captain? He remains calm, focused, steady. Why? Because he's been trained to handle storms. He knows panic never solves problems. Clear thinking does. In life, we're all captains of our own ships. Storms are not a possibility. They are a guarantee. The real question is not whether you'll face them, but how you'll navigate through them. Don't wish for life to be easier. Wish to become better. Don't wish for fewer problems. Wish for more skills. Don't wish for fewer challenges. Wish for greater wisdom. That mindset alone can change how you approach everything. Now, let's talk about reaction versus response. This difference is crucial. When you react, you operate on autopilot, letting emotions control your behavior. It's instant, often thoughtless, and rarely intelligent. Reaction comes from the primitive brain, focused only on survival. But when you respond, you make a conscious choice. You pause, think, and act with reason, wisdom, and values. Responses come from intelligence. Reactions come from impulse. Let me give you a simple example. Imagine someone cuts you off in traffic. The natural reaction might be to slam the horn, gesture in anger, maybe even chase after them to give them a piece of your mind. But what does that really give you? Higher blood pressure, the risk of confrontation, maybe even an accident. The response, on the other hand, is different. You take a deep breath, remind yourself that their behavior isn't about you, and continue safely on your way. Which approach serves you better? Which one keeps you in control of your day, your emotions, and your life? I've always said, your life does not get better by chance. It gets better by change. If you want to stay calm in every situation, you must change how you interpret and respond to life's events. Now, let's talk about the cost of emotional reactivity. Everything has a price, doesn't it? And the inability to remain calm under pressure comes with a tremendous cost. I'm not only talking about money, though that plays a role. When you lose your calm, you lose your ability to think clearly. When you can't think clearly, you make poor decisions. Poor decisions create problems, and that spiral can touch every area of your life, your relationships, your career, even your finances. Did you know stress-related illnesses cost Americans billions of dollars each year? Did you know most workplace conflicts come from emotional reactions, not rational disagreements? And did you know that many relationship struggles trace back to poor emotional management? The cost is enormous. But here's the good news. You can learn to be calm. You can train your mind just as you train your body. Calmness is not a personality trait. It's a skill. And like any skill, it takes understanding, practice, and discipline. That's why I want to share with you what I call the 4 pillars of mental calmness. These are the foundation for building unshakable composure in any situation. Pillar 1 is perspective, the way you choose to see a situation. Perspective determines how you feel about any situation. If you see it as a disaster, you'll panic. If you see it as a challenge, you'll feel engaged. And if you see it as an opportunity, you'll feel excited. I once spoke with a very successful entrepreneur who lost $1 million contract. At first, he was devastated. But then he asked himself, what's the lesson here? What's the opportunity? By the end of that week, he had secured 2 new contracts worth $1.5 million combined. If he hadn't lost the first deal, he wouldn't have had the bandwidth to pursue those opportunities. That's perspective in action. It doesn't deny reality. It interprets it in a way that empowers rather than defeats you. The ancient Stoics practiced something called premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils. They would imagine worst-case scenarios, not to dwell on them, but to prepare their minds and keep challenges in perspective. When you've already rehearsed how you'll handle difficulties, They lose the power to disturb your peace. Here's a simple exercise. The next time you face a challenge, ask yourself, will this matter in 5 years? 5 months? 5 weeks? 5 days? Often, the answer is no. And if it won't matter then, why let it steal your peace now? That brings us to the second pillar, presence. Presence is about being fully engaged in the moment. Most anxiety comes from dwelling on the past or worrying about the future, but calm lives in the now. I've often said, the greatest gift you can give someone is your attention. The same is true for yourself. Be where you are. Do what you're doing. Experience life as it unfolds, not as you imagine or remember it. Think about it. Have you ever been so absorbed in a sport, a hobby, or solving a tough problem that time seemed to disappear? In that flow, you felt calm and centered. That's presence, your mind fully alive in the moment. And one of the most powerful ways to develop presence is meditation. It's not about emptying your mind, but about training it to stay here, now. Meditation isn't about emptying your mind. It's about training your attention. Each time you bring your focus back to the present, you're strengthening that muscle. Over time, this becomes your natural way of living. But presence doesn't require sitting cross-legged on a cushion. You can bring mindful awareness into any part of daily life. When you eat, just eat. When you walk, just walk. When you listen, just listen. Simple, yes, but not always easy. That's why it's called a practice. The third pillar is preparation. Much of our stress comes from feeling unprepared for life's challenges. But when you are ready, mentally, emotionally, and physically, you meet situations with confidence instead of fear. Think about why emergency responders, military personnel, and top athletes remain calm under pressure. It's because they've trained extensively. They've built routines and protocols that take over when the pressure rises. You can apply the same principle in your own life. Identify the situations that usually cause you stress and prepare for them ahead of time. Establish morning routines that set the tone for a calm, productive day. Create contingency plans for recurring work challenges. Rehearse difficult conversations before you have them. I've always emphasized the importance of continuous learning and self-improvement. Growth expands your capacity to handle difficulties and stretches your comfort zone, making fewer situations feel overwhelming. Preparation isn't about controlling everything. It's about equipping yourself so that when challenges arrive, you're ready. Preparation is about more than control. It's about developing the skills, resources, and mindset to face uncertainty with confidence. It's building trust in your own ability to handle whatever life brings. The fourth pillar is practice. Knowledge alone won't change your life. Applied knowledge will. Simply understanding these principles won't make you calmer. You must put them into practice consistently. Start small. Don't wait for a crisis to test your composure. Use the minor irritations of daily life as your training ground. Traffic jams, long lines, technology glitches, disagreements with colleagues. These are opportunities. When you feel tension rise, pause. Take a deep breath. Remember your perspective. Bring yourself back to the present. Lean on your preparation. Then, make a conscious choice about how to respond. Each time you do this, you strengthen new neural pathways in your brain. You're building habits that make calm your default state, rather than reactivity. And here's the truth. This is a lifelong practice. I've worked on it for decades, and I still lose my calm at times. The difference now is I recognize it faster, recover more quickly, and learn from each moment. Let's look at the science of staying calm. What actually happens in your brain and body when you're triggered versus when you're composed? When you perceive a threat, physical or psychological, your amygdala, a small almond-shaped structure in your brain, activates the stress response. Your body floods with adrenaline and cortisol. Your heart rate spikes, your breathing quickens, and blood shifts away from digestion toward your arms and legs, preparing you to fight or flee. This is brilliant for physical danger. But is it helpful when the threat is an email, a traffic jam, or a disagreement with your spouse? In those moments, you don't need your survival brain. You need your prefrontal cortex, the part responsible for higher-level thinking, planning, and decision-making. The problem is clear. When your amygdala is activated, your prefrontal cortex shuts down. You literally can't think straight when you're emotionally flooded. That's why pausing, even for a few deep breaths, is so powerful. It allows your body to settle and gives your prefrontal cortex a chance to come back online. Regular practices such as meditation, deep breathing, and physical exercise can actually reshape your brain over time. They strengthen the prefrontal cortex, reduce amygdala reactivity, and improve communication between different brain regions. This creates more balanced, integrated responses to stress. This isn't abstract philosophy, it's neuroscience. You can rewire your brain to be calmer through consistent practice. Isn't that remarkable? You already have that power. Now, let's talk about cultivating emotional literacy. Being calm doesn't mean suppressing or denying your emotions. True calmness comes from the ability to recognize, understand, and work with your feelings effectively. Yet many of us were never taught how to do this. We were told to stop crying, calm down, or just get over it. But emotions don't work that way. They need acknowledgement and healthy expression, not denial. So what can you do? When a strong emotion arises, start by naming it. I'm feeling frustrated right now. I notice anxiety coming up. I'm experiencing disappointment. Simply naming the feeling creates distance. You're no longer consumed by it. You're observing it. Next, locate the emotion in your body. Is there tightness in your chest, a knot in your stomach, or tension in your shoulders? This grounds the experience in physical sensation rather than a mental story. Then, be curious. Ask yourself, what's triggering this feeling? What is it trying to tell me? What need is it pointing toward? Remember, emotions are messengers. They carry valuable information if you're willing to listen. Finally, respond wisely. Use what you've learned from the emotion to guide your next step. What's the most constructive action you can take now? Sometimes the wisest response is simply to breathe and allow the emotion to pass without acting on it at all. With practice, this may take only seconds, but it completely shifts your relationship with emotions. Instead of being driven by them, you're informed by them, and that makes all the difference in staying calm. Now let's turn to one of the toughest areas for maintaining composure: communication, especially in difficult conversations. When things get heated, most people either lash out or shut down. Neither response helps. The key is to stay engaged without being reactive, assertive but not aggressive, open but not easily overwhelmed. I use a framework I call the calm approach to communication. C. Connect with the other person's perspective. Make a genuine effort to understand where they're coming from, even if you disagree. It doesn't mean you must accept their view. It means you respect it enough to listen. Assert your own needs and boundaries clearly and respectfully. Use I statements like, I feel concerned when, instead of accusations such as, you always. L. Listen deeply without planning your rebuttal. Give your full attention while they speak, and ask clarifying questions to ensure you truly understand. M. Manage the process of the conversation. Suggest breaks if emotions rise too high. Summarize points of agreement and disagreement. Keep the focus on solutions instead of dwelling on problems. This approach works in personal relationships, business negotiations, customer service, any situation where pressure runs high. Remember, the goal is not to win the conversation, but to reach understanding and resolution while protecting everyone's dignity. With this mindset, even sensitive topics can be handled calmly and respectfully. And beyond conversations, your environment itself plays a critical role. Just as it's easier to eat healthfully when your kitchen is stocked with nutritious foods, it's easier to stay calm when your surroundings support peace of mind. It's far easier to maintain calm when your environment supports it. Start with the physical space around you. Clutter creates mental noise. A disorganized room generates a constant, low-level anxiety that makes calmness harder to hold on to. Take time to create spaces that feel orderly and peaceful. Then consider your digital environment. The average person checks their phone nearly 100 times a day, about once every 10 minutes. Each glance can trigger stress, whether from work emails, social media comparisons, or alarming news alerts. Set boundaries with technology. Build intentional periods of digital silence into your day. Your social environment matters just as much. As Jim Rohn famously said, you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. If you surround yourself with reactive, negative people, staying calm becomes a struggle. Instead, choose companions who have mastered their emotional responses, people who lift you up and bring out your best. And don't forget your informational environment. What are you feeding your mind? A steady diet of alarming news, violent entertainment, and polarizing social media trains your brain to stay in high alert. Be intentional with what you consume. Choose information that nourishes rather than drains your mental energy. Creating environments that foster calmness isn't about controlling everything around you. It's about making conscious choices that support your well-being and removing stressors that pull you off balance. We also can't talk about mental calmness without addressing physical well-being. Your mind and body aren't separate systems. They are one integrated whole. Sleep deprivation alone makes it nearly impossible to regulate emotions. Even mild lack of sleep can increase reactivity by 60%. That's why quality rest is the foundation of emotional balance. Nutrition plays a powerful role, too. Blood sugar swings can trigger mood changes and anxiety. Caffeine and alcohol interfere with your natural calm. And key nutrients like omega-3 fatty acids, B vitamins, and magnesium are essential for brain function and stress regulation. Add to this the benefits of regular physical activity. It remains one of the most effective ways to manage stress and maintain calm. One of the most powerful tools for developing calmness is exercise. Physical activity releases tension, produces endorphins that lift your mood, and strengthens your resilience to stress. It doesn't need to be extreme. Even a simple daily walk can make a remarkable difference. Hydration matters more than most people realize. Even mild dehydration affects brain function and mood regulation. Something as basic as drinking enough water throughout the day helps you stay centered and clear-headed. These fundamentals may sound simple, but they are profoundly important. Neglecting physical well-being while pursuing mental calmness is like building a house on sand. Care for your body, and your mind will have a strong foundation to thrive. But what about when crisis strikes? Everyday calmness is one thing, but how do you remain steady when something truly significant is at stake? The truth is, everything we've discussed becomes even more vital during crisis, not less. The principles are the same, the stakes are higher. First, maintain perspective, presence, preparation, and practice. These skills are tested most in moments of crisis. Second, accept that strong emotions will come. The goal isn't to suppress them, but to feel them without being consumed. Let emotions move through you without dictating your actions. Third, focus on what you can control. Every crisis includes factors beyond your reach. Directing your energy toward what you can influence leads to better outcomes and preserves your sense of agency. Fourth, remember that crisis reveals character. It doesn't create it. How you respond under pressure is shaped by the habits you've built in calmer times. That's why daily practice matters so much. Finally, seek the growth hidden in crisis. Some of life's greatest lessons and deepest personal development come from facing difficult situations and emerging stronger. I've known people who lost fortunes, faced life-threatening illnesses, or endured devastating betrayals, yet emerged stronger, wiser, and more at peace than before. Not because those experiences were pleasant, but because they used them as catalysts for profound inner transformation. This leads us to the spiritual dimension of calmness. Regardless of your religious or philosophical beliefs, cultivating a sense of connection to something greater than yourself can serve as a powerful anchor in turbulent times. Many traditions teach the practice of surrender, not as passive resignation, but as acknowledging reality as it is before attempting to change it. There is deep wisdom in this approach. When you stop resisting what has already happened, you free up energy to respond more effectively. Gratitude practices, for example, have been shown scientifically to shift the nervous system toward a calmer state. Taking a few moments each day to reflect on what you appreciate isn't just positive thinking. It's training your attention to notice the full spectrum of your experience instead of fixating only on problems. Contemplating your place in the larger arc of time and space can also foster calmness. Most of what disturbs us today won't matter in a year, let alone in a century. This doesn't dismiss your concerns. It places them in a broader context that softens their emotional weight. And many people discover that service to others naturally creates inner calm. Shifting your focus from personal worries to supporting someone else's well-being brings perspective and peace that self-absorption cannot. There's something about transcending self-concern that soothes the anxious mind. Whatever form it takes for you, nurturing this spiritual dimension provides a deep well of calmness to sustain you through life's inevitable challenges. And if you're a parent, leader, teacher, or someone who influences others, one of the greatest gifts you can offer is helping them develop this same capacity for calmness. Remember, people learn primarily through example. Children don't master emotional regulation through lectures. They learn it by watching how adults handle stress. Employees absorb cultural norms by observing how leaders respond to setbacks. Be transparent about your own practice. When you consciously choose to respond calmly instead of reacting emotionally, share your process. For example, I notice I'm feeling frustrated, so I'm taking a deep breath before deciding how to respond. This kind of openness shows others that calmness is not a fixed trait. It's a skill anyone can practice. Create environments where emotions can be acknowledged without being overwhelming. When someone in your circle is triggered, avoid telling them to calm down. It rarely works. Instead, validate their feelings while modeling steadiness yourself. And don't hesitate to teach specific techniques for developing calmness. Deep breathing, counting to 10, taking a short walk, or writing down feelings before responding. Different methods work for different people. Offer options, not rigid prescriptions. Most importantly, be patient. Learning emotional self-regulation is a lifelong journey, not a final destination. Celebrate progress instead of expecting perfection. Now let's look at the practical benefits of calmness. In today's fast-paced, high-pressure world, the ability to remain composed isn't just a nice quality. It's a powerful competitive advantage. In business, the person who can think clearly when markets are volatile makes smarter investment decisions. The leader who stays centered during a crisis inspires confidence and creates a psychological safety for their team. The entrepreneur who remains steady through inevitable setbacks perseveres where others give up. In your career, being recognized as someone who handles pressure with grace opens doors to greater responsibility and opportunity. People trust those who demonstrate emotional stability. They want to work with them, promote them, and follow them through challenges. In relationships, calmness during conflict leads to healthier communication, faster resolution, and deeper connection. Many relationships fail not because of the problems themselves, but because of how those problems are discussed and managed emotionally. And even in health, your ability to remain calm has profound effects. Chronic stress is linked to 6 of the leading causes of death. Learning to regulate your emotions isn't just about feeling better. It's about living longer, healthier, and more resilient. Truly, the ability to train your mind to be calm in every situation is one of the greatest skills you can ever master. Calmness is a true superpower in today's world. It's an investment that pays dividends in every area of life. But remember, developing calmness is a journey, not a destination. There will never be a point where you've arrived and never feel triggered again. Even the most accomplished practitioners lose their center at times. The difference is in how quickly they notice, how effectively they return to balance, and what they learn from the experience. Over time, the path bends toward greater equilibrium, but it's never a straight line. So be compassionate with yourself. When you lose your calm, don't see it as failure, see it as feedback. Ask yourself, what triggered me? What story was I telling myself? What need wasn't being met? How might I respond differently next time? Track your growth over months and years, not days. Notice how situations that once shook you deeply now barely register. Pay attention to how your recovery time shortens. And never forget, the goal isn't to be emotionless. It's to feel fully while staying grounded in your deeper values. It's about expanding your capacity to handle the full range of human emotion without being destabilized by it. We've covered a lot together today. The 4 pillars of calmness: perspective, presence, preparation, and practice. We've explored the science of emotional regulation, the importance of emotional literacy, communication under pressure, supportive environments, physical well-being, crisis management, and even the spiritual dimension of calmness. We've also seen how to teach calmness to others and why it's a competitive advantage. But knowledge alone doesn't create transformation. Information without action is only potential. The question now is this: what will you do with what you've learned? Will these ideas become part of how you live, or will they remain interesting concepts you heard once and then forgot? The real difference between those who grow and those who stagnate isn't intelligence or luck, it's decision. The decision to apply what you've learned. The decision to practice consistently. The decision to prioritize growth, even when it feels uncomfortable or inconvenient. As I often say, you cannot change your destination overnight, but you can change your direction overnight. And today, you can choose to move toward greater calmness, emotional mastery, presence, and peace. That decision, reinforced daily, will transform your life over time. So what are your next steps? Let me leave you with a few practical ones. First, begin a daily practice of mindfulness or meditation. Even 5 minutes each morning will strengthen your baseline for presence and awareness. Second, identify your emotional triggers. Notice the situations, interactions, or thoughts that most often disrupt your calm. Awareness is always the first step toward change. Third, create a personal reset ritual, a simple practice you can use anywhere to regain balance when you're activated. It could be 3 deep breaths, silently repeating a grounding phrase, or doing a quick body scan to release tension. Fourth, track your progress. Keep a journal where you record moments when you stayed calm in situations that once would have triggered you. Celebrate those small wins. They reinforce your new patterns. Fifth, share your journey with others. Teaching what you're learning not only helps them, but also strengthens your own understanding and discipline. And finally, be patient. You're unwinding habits and responses that may have been shaped over decades. Change is gradual, until suddenly it's not. Trust the process. The ultimate reward of this journey isn't just avoiding the damage caused by reactivity. It's gaining access to a quality of life most people never experience. When you are no longer at the mercy of every emotional storm, you discover a deeper peace and freedom that transforms everything. When you're no longer at the mercy of triggers or reactive patterns, you become truly free. Free to choose your response in any situation. Free to hold your integrity under pressure. Free to act from your highest values instead of fleeting impulses. This freedom creates a deep inner peace that no outside circumstance can shake. It lets you engage fully with life without being tossed around by its inevitable ups and downs. It also allows you to be a steady presence for others when they are struggling, a beacon of calm in stormy seas. And perhaps most importantly, it helps you become more fully yourself. Not a bundle of reactions or protective defenses, but a conscious, intentional human being who brings unique gifts to the world with clarity and purpose. Isn't that worth the effort? Isn't that worth the practice? Isn't that worth the daily choice to train your mind to be calm in every situation? I believe it is. I believe you're worth it. And as you walk this path, you will uncover strengths within yourself you never imagined. Reserves of wisdom, compassion, courage, and peace that transform not only your life, but the lives of everyone around you. Thank you for joining me today. Now go and put these principles into practice. Your calmer, more centered self is waiting to emerge. All it takes is your decision to begin, and then to begin again tomorrow, and the next day, and the next. That is how transformation happens. That is how you become the captain who navigates storms with steady hands and a clear mind. That is how you train your mind to be calm in every situation. I wish you health, happiness, and peace. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel, Mindset Daily.